Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our first guest today, the Honourable Douglas Roche. The Honourable Douglas Roche is an author, parliamentarian, and a diplomat. He specialized in peace and human security issues throughout his 50-year public career. He is a former senator, member of parliament, Canadian ambassador for disarmament, and visiting professor at the University of Alberta. He was elected chairman of the United Nations Disarmament Committee at the 43rd General Assembly in 1988. He's the author of 25 books and holds 9 honorary doctorates from Canadian and American universities, and has received numerous awards for his work for peace and nonviolence. He's an officer of the Order of Canada. With that, please join me in welcoming Senator Roche. Senator, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much for being here, and we are very excited to have you with us.
Good morning, and thank you very much for your introduction and for inviting me. I congratulate the John Humphrey Center for organizing such a splendid conference, and I thank Renee Bourgeois and her team for all your hard work. We are observing the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the midst of devastating wars. We must see the direct linkage between human rights and war. War is the enemy of human rights. And if we would advance human rights, we must end war. The world faces no greater challenge today than the challenge to end its relentless march to war. War causes starvation, deepens poverty, ruins environments, forces migrations of peoples, wrecks the rule of law, and multiplies the gap between rich and poor, and causes prolonged misery for the most vulnerable people. Though these world problems are rooted in a host of actors, none can be resolved adequately unless we end the dominance of the culture of war. That is why the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, recently published a new agenda for peace, which addresses a myriad of challenges to the international community faces today. He sets out a comprehensive approach to prevention, linking peace, sustainable development, climate action, and food security. Guterres says that in order to protect and manage the global public good of peace, we need a peace continuum based on a better understanding of the underlying drivers of conflict, a renewed effort to agree on a more effective collective security response, and a meaningful set of steps to manage emerging risks. This is a holistic approach to peace. The new agenda for peace is buttressed by a new effort made by the nations attending in last September a UN summit on sustainable development goals. These 17 development goals have a 2030 target to eliminate the worst forms of poverty, but that target is now out of reach. The 2023 summit was a rallying cry for action to regain the lost ground on the Sustainable Development Goals from the twin blows of the pandemic and the recent wars and ongoing wars. The summit was designed to reinvigorate the sense of hope, optimism, and enthusiasm that characterized the adoption of the SDGs in 2015. Also, the climate crisis. Global warming is a security issue because higher temperatures lead to famines and conflict over resources. These are tragedies in themselves, but they also then lead to higher refugee rates. The devastating effects of global warming are now felt around the world. The 2023 final report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says it will take a quantum leap in global action to hold global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. These three crises, war, economic and social development, and global warming, are all manifestations of the disregard for human rights shown by multiple governments. And overarching all of this is the worsening crisis of the possession and modernization of nuclear weapons by 9 states. The United Nations is trying to address all these crises, and in so doing, the UN has proved itself to be a repository of hope for the world that will truly practice full human rights. And we note that in 2016, the UN adopted a declaration on the right to peace, which is a projection of a complete human rights agenda. Just as it was necessary to go beyond the UN Charter in writing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the proponents of the right to peace assert that it is now necessary to wrap the issues of peace and security, development, and human rights into a single framework called the right to peace. Many states find this appealing because it reflects a holistic approach to peace. But several Western states, unfortunately Canada is among them, vigorously reject this attempt to they're holding that there is no legal basis for peace in international law, and that it is impossible to find a common definition of peace grounded in human rights. The drafters thus compromised, and they wrote this key paragraph, and I quote, "Everyone has the right to enjoy peace such that all human rights are promoted and protected and development is fully realized." Well, this is not a perfect phrase, but it's a step forward. It's a step forward in the movement of human rights in the world. The Declaration on the Right to Peace lays the groundwork for a more secure world. Opponents doubtless fear that it will pave the way for a future comprehensive law against warfare. Well, that, of course, is exactly what is intended. The development of public opinion to a higher level in opposing war is a necessary basis for the legal prohibition of warfare. The peace I am talking about here is not the peace of the idealist, expecting a utopia in this heavily burdened world. Rather, it is the peace of the realist, knowing that in the age of weapons of mass destruction and the globalization of life and death issues, such as climate change and pandemics, an acceptance of new rules for common security is essential. As United States President John F. Kennedy said several decades ago, in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future. And we are all mortal. Well, like Kennedy, I am talking about genuine peace. The kind of peace that makes life on Earth worth living, and the kind that enables peoples and nations to grow and to hope and to build a better life for their children. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time. Hope for peace is rooted in our spirit. It's not a tangible thing that we can put on the table to bargain over. Hope is a vision for the future. I do have this vision of a future without nuclear weapons, without global warming, without extreme poverty. And so do the millions of people in civil society movements on disarmament, development, environmental protection, civil rights, who have developed a global presence that stimulates, encourages, reprimands, and otherwise pressures governments to implement forward-minded global security policies. We must seize all the opportunities available to us to advance the human rights agenda and to build the conditions for peace. That is what the John Humphrey Center is trying to do, and I give it my full support. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you.